Wait for that to go. Looks good. And we will start the recording. All right, everyone. Welcome to the IPFS All Hands Call for July 23rd, 2018. Starting off today, looks like we have a light agenda with a lot of demos, which is something I love to see. Starting off, we should go with Michelle for the summer report here.
Yeah, I can tell you about it. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. My headphones are a little weird. Awesome, thank you. Just a quick report out. Last week, for most of the week, I was at the ESIP summer meeting. ESIP is Earth Science Information Partners, I believe. They pull together a bunch of Earth Science data managers, like people from NOAA, people from NASA, great folks. I've worked with them before when I used to work with NOAA. I proposed an unconference session there on distributed web stuff. It was packed. People were really interested. What they had heard about distributed web stuff was a bit of IPFS, a bit of DAT. In general, DAT seemed more approachable to folks. I'll be writing up notes about all this, and I will post it in a public place and let you all know. But yeah, some interesting things there, lots of interest. Also now on the ESIP Slack, there's a distributed web channel where people are just kind of, what is going on here? There is a future here. We don't know what it is, but we're very excited. So another thing is that if anybody has interest or time, I can hook you up with where that Slack is. It would be great to have people there to be able to answer questions, but that's a separate thing. I think that's the update. Any questions? Anyone have questions? Lovely. I'll write up a more detailed little summary of all that, but I want to let you know that happened.
Perfect. All right, so that covers the agenda for today. Moving on to demos. Looks like we have two from Mache here. So is he, yep. If you're ready to go through with those, you can go ahead now.
Yeah, so I built a tiny tool to basically just publish something that's running on localhost behind HTTPS and wait a second. So I have this web server running here on localhost, and now I just run the peer tunnel tool, which then connects to this libpdp server and then opens a tunnel. When I now go to this page, it simply dials the peer back and opens a tiny relay. And now this page is published via SSL, and everybody can reach it from the internet. So anybody can visit this URL right now. And also it logs access. So that's basically it, this tiny tool, and it uses libpdp. That's why I demoed it here. Has anybody got any questions?
Rob, do you have a question?
Yeah, it looked like you didn't necessarily add any parameters or anything to that. Is it tied to a particular host or peer ID or something, or is that configurable? Like how do you run the other end that takes in
Oh, I totally forgot to mention that. There is a simple admin interface that allows to assign a username per peer ID, and then that username is being used as the host name. It's also possible to add the suffix. Maybe I could demo that too. I forgot that. So I can also, if I want to add a suffix to the URL, and then it opens the whole thing under mkg 20001/website. And the admin interface is also just simply users add another ID, and then I can add. Wait, I think I forgot the API, so let's better not demo this. I didn't really use the tool much after I made it. But that's basically what it does.
Any more questions? All right, Matcha, if you would like to go on with your second demo, you can go ahead.
So the second demo is I have written this tool called libpdp no trust some time ago that issues certificates to any node based on its IP address. And I've recently rewritten the whole thing in microservices so it can be managed more easily, and wanted to demo how that works. And so this is the demo page. This basically connects to the issuing server that also runs PubSub, where all no trust nodes announce their no trust addresses and connects to them. So these are the addresses that have been issued, and it connects to them. And about the issuance process, here are 4 tiles. The top left is the DNS server. The top right is the proof server. The bottom left is the issuance server, and the bottom right is the server where the client runs. So if I run the client, it first connects to the issuance server, then connects to different proof servers, for example, for IPv4. And then that should get logged here that it required the proof. Then it does a DNS one challenge over Let's Encrypt using a DNS server. And then it acquires a cert via ASME and sends the cert back to the client. And after that, the client should appear in the browser. Now it did, and now it should. Oh, it didn't fully work. Maybe let's reload the page. And now it's connected to the client that I just launched via SSL, via the cert it just acquired. And yeah, that's basically what no trust does. And additionally, I would maybe, I don't know if I should ask this in this meeting, but I would also like to get this deployed on the Protocol Labs infrastructure, so I don't have to manage this, and maybe get it into JS IPFS, because it would be really useful for the browser, as browsers would be able to connect to any peer instead of having to use PDP circuit, because browsers have limited TCP connectivity and not everyone wants to run a JS IPFS node with WebRTC. And yeah, that's what no trust does. Has anybody got questions to that?
I would like to ask the group here if anyone with authority is present for such a thing. Like, where would Mache go to possibly get this into our infrastructure?
He would probably talk to Lars.
Right.
The actual, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. The actual question is like, do we actually need it? Like and thank you so much for demoing No Trust again, Machi. It is right now just like unclear because we haven't done the actual like thinking of how this fits together with the peer-to-peer collection of modules, and like what users expect. Is this actually a good thing to add? Like, will it create security issues in the future? And so there are all these questions, and like if we go maybe a couple of months, maybe 3 months of IPFS lens ago, we'll see that like these questions were raised in the past, but like we still haven't had the time to like dive deep and get an answer to those. And so yes, like I guess like we can just like host it. Like if it's just a question of like resources to like host a service, and we can host it. But from that to actually communicating to our users, creating a tutorial about how this works, like incentivizing people to use it, it's a different step. And so I would like to see a little bit more people getting involved with Node Trust, reviewing it, like sharing their thoughts. Probably like get Node Trust to be like to have a proper spec on RFC, so that other people can really understand what's happening underneath and like what are the shortcomings that it tries to solve. Otherwise, we might just like be adding something that we don't clearly understand the implications. Did I lost everyone? Could people hear me from the beginning to the end? I'm in a very laggy connection. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. And so, yes, basically, like we should have this discussion. Like, and if people are super interested, like they should, or at least they can self-appoint themselves right now or later, but like volunteer to review and work on this with Matthew. And maybe Matthew, you can like follow up on the issue on with peer-to-peer about Node Trust and feeding the group here to see if anyone has the time in the short term to like go through the architecture of Node Trust and its implications in the near future. I know that everyone is pretty busy with some events that are happening soon, so it might be hard, but nevertheless important to do.
All right, so it looks like we have no other questions on that. All right, up next we have Jamie with Hubot.
Hi, can you all hear me? Hi, I'm Jamie, dialing in from New York. Long-time listener, first-time caller. This will be a fast one. So if you all saw a couple weeks ago when Juan demoed the IPFS Hubot script that he wrote, which interfaces with the daemon locally and allows you to run all these commands. And then he'd done it kind of how everybody bootstraps a little Hubot plugin, just like a little script inside of the, directly inside of your Hubot application. All I did was just break it out into a plugin, which I've done a bunch of times before for things that reuse. Makes it easier to upgrade, easier to publish, easier to add into your own Hubot. I sent in a little PR here on this tab for switching it over, which is still outstanding in case anybody wants to approve me. And then if you need a quick demo, I have my little Hubot that I've had running inside of a couple different Slacks and IRC channels for a few years that, as you can see, it kind of just uses the external scripts. And so you got Hubot IPFS here. And this is published on NPM right now. And then if you want to see, it works exactly like the way Juan's did, where, I can ask my bot for help. I can ask it for IPFS help. And then let me grab a hash. You can just say pin hash and wait, and it pins your hashes for you. And that's it. But that means that if we make updates to the plugin centrally, it's as easy as a little NPM update inside of your own Hubot to get the latest version, which just makes easier to maintain. I think that's it. I'll stop sharing. Obligatory, awkward, any questions?
It was cool.
Thank you.
All right, cool demo aside, let's move on to another cool demo from Lidl here, talking about IPFS in Firefox Nightly.
Yeah, so let's try to share my screen. Okay, is it shared? Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so I've created a libdweb branch in IPFS Companion, our companion browser extension, and you have two easy scripts to build it. This libdweb experiment, you just run libdweb build, and then you need to download Firefox Nightly. make sure it's on your path. And then if you run in this context, it just starts Firefox nightly with our little experiment. And hopefully, yeah, looks like it.
Lionel, I think you've gone muted.
I think I've muted myself when I was like dragging this. Sorry about that. So we don't have many hashes to test. So there's this issue with this experiment, and I put some hashes there. So if you copy a hash and put it in the address bar, it will load natively, and it stays there. So what's happening behind the scenes is that there's no HTTP anymore, at least in the browser context. We are streaming response from IPFS node. Right now, it's like my local node, which I connect over HTTP, but you can switch to embedded one. That will work at some point. What's cool about this is that not only images work, but also like regular, okay, maybe if I don't make a typo, yeah. If you copy without a typo, you will see there is like a regular website loading from IPFS protocol. And not only that, we also have directory listening back again. Like you can traverse the directory. If you have it locally, it goes much faster. What's most exciting for me is that we got streaming working, and that means you have like a video working over this native protocol, and it's actually it's a real stream. You can start watching before it loads. What does not work yet is that if you try to use IPFS protocol in things like video tag, I like created a small demo page. Oh, okay, that worked. So that was not supposed to work. And I think there is some kind of a bug because it not always works. So there are two videos. One is like loaded over IPFS protocol, and another one is read from the public gateway. That's the current state of things. We also have like basic error handling. So if you paste invalid CID, you will get an information that you should upgrade to base 32. We'll make this like user experience better, but for now that's that. And there are like a list of open questions and known issues, which we'll be tackling over time with friends from Mozilla, but that's the current status update of native protocol handler. And I'll stop sharing right now so I can see if there are any crickets there.
Woo!
Any questions? Rob?
Is the supposed bug that we didn't get to see, is that a libdweb problem, or is that something on the companion side?
That's a good question. I suspect the problem is that the way streaming of video sources work, this may be like internally handled over content range header in HTTP. The problem is that when you move away from HTTP, you don't have this abstraction. So it may be that we may need additional like metadata layer or like way of signaling ranges for those use cases. That's like an open question. It may like it's possible that it started working because I've opened it directly before, So it was like in Firefox memory. It may be related to Firefox specific architecture. It may be specific to libdweb experiment, or it's just maybe that we don't have those like range semantics yet.
All right, any more questions for that? Okay, any impromptu agenda items, or does anyone need help with anything that they would like to ask the group? Michelle?
I have a question, and you might be able to redirect me somewhere. The biggest question that came up at ESIP, well, maybe there were two separate questions. One of them was, what happens on IPFS for something like New York Times or something like that, where there's a place that you want to go a lot, but the stuff underneath changes? Is that something that someone has written up or thought? Does that make sense? Like you might have a content address to an article, but you want to find a group of articles somewhere. That like folder, is there a concept of that in IPFS? Might not be a good question. I'm reading some text here.
Sorry, could you go from the top again? You want a like some way to link from a content address article to some set of articles?
Probably. I mean,
category?
the general concept that I can explain it because I'm new to the community and all that was that what happens then with something like the New York Times where it changes, but you want to be able to find it. Yeah, you could also think of it. I mean, related, but maybe a separate question is like streaming, but that's kind of a separate thing. But yeah.
So we have something called IPNS. It's the mutable link system. So you can put your data in a content addressable system and then make an IPNS pointer point to it. And then we're going to update it. You change it and you get a new content addressable address. And then you make the pointer point to the new thing. If you want something more like live, you can do this with JavaScript, where like you load some content addressable thing in your website or in your web browser, and then you run some JavaScript in the background that connects to various servers or like connects to like the libdp network and uses pub subs like that to like fetch new data. But it really depends on what you're trying to do. For like a simple like you want to make the New York Times or you want to like make some blog, you got to worry about the content. You should use IPNS.
I think that was their example. Probably the use case for big data stuff would be a new version of data comes up and you want to be able to like say, here's all the stuff. And then, okay, here's the new thing, here's the new thing, here's the new thing, but not lose the connection that this is the new version of the old thing.
Okay. Yeah. Usually what you do there is you would have your data set, you'd have an IPNS link that points to your data set, and you make the IPNS link point to the new data set, and then the new data set would point back to the old data set.
I'll learn about IPNS, sounds like is the thing there. Thank you. Yep. Oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to call on people, but is Johnny saying a thing?
I think just to build on that with the web companion and IPFS : is the IPNS : and ultimately that's going to be a hash of a public key. And in base 32 encoding, how to handle the multi-keys, especially for elliptic curve public keys. And what's the challenges to that? I suppose the question is really for Lytle.
Yeah, so that's a very timely question because like right now, if you have IPNS and you want to refer to a peer, you use like peer ID, right? And the problem is that those are in base 58. And I don't think we have like a convention, or do we even allow different, like at least multi-base encoding, of peer IDs. So that's like an open question. And until that's solved, we won't be able to use IPNS in new protocols on the IPFS.
Okay, do we have a documented issue somewhere? I'm working on this right now with, as I presented last week, was this IP ID project with ED25519. and there's a merging standard for HD wallets using 25519. And so I think, but ultimately, since I'm using the peer ID as this DID unique identifier, I'm running into this issue about base 32 encoding, and it's suddenly like not going to be possible.
Yeah, personally, the way I see it, the current peer ID is just like multi-hash. So if we allow to put it in CID1 like representation, that would work the same way in IPFS and in IPNS. It may be that I don't see some technical problems. Steven?
So at the end of the day, we would like to switch to IPLD for keys. So we get rid of all those issues. But the upgrade path is a bit unclear because like the key version 0 or the CAD version 0 of keys is not the same thing as the CAD version 0 of files. So we'd have two things that like they're both just bare multi-hashes and you can't tell the difference. There are some issues that try to figure this out, mostly by saying, well, there's no real CID version 0. It's just contextual based on the prefix. So like you have like /IPFS /CID version 0, you can interpret it one way. If you have, or sorry, /bare hash, you interpret it one way. If you have /P2P /bare hash, or you interpret a different way. Unfortunately, we also have like, we've been using /IPFS for the protocol as well, the protocol name. So we can't quite disambiguate that. But like currently, like if you have /IPFS /QM whatever, that could either be a file or a key, and you can't tell the difference at the moment. So.
All right.
Rob?
On the more practical side, does that mean for libdweb and companion stuff, the only way for now to address mutable content that reliably works is DNS link? So you could have IPNS:// domain name.
Yeah, like anything apart from the native protocol will work. Because unless you want to put peer ID, like the key hash in subdomain, anything apart of using that in subdomain will work correctly, like it works right now. Subdomains and native protocol handler are kind of the same abstraction. You put base 32 case insensitive hash in authority component. Anything else will work fine.
Does this new protocol handler have a length limit in the domain name? No, sorry, does the new protocol handler and the new IPFS protocol handler have a length limit?
Like length?
Yeah.
How long can it be? I don't think so. We did not try that.
Okay, hopefully not. Because like right now everything sort of fits in a domain name. In the future, that's probably not going to happen. So that'll change over time. So.
All right, we are slightly over time, so I don't think we have any more time for questions, but it seems like a little productive session. With that said, I think that's going to conclude our meeting for today. So I look forward to seeing everyone next week. Take care. Bye-bye.